A few years back, me and an old hiking buddy reunited to try and complete one of the scrambles on the Heart Mountain Horseshoe Trail here in Alberta. It had been a while since we'd been out together, and sadly we found we weren't nearly as fit as we used to be. So after hitting the wall fairly early on, we decided that we'd stick to some of the easier trails and give some encouragement to the other climbers we passed on our way. Anyway, so after walking for a few hours, we settled in for lunch, then decided to head back while we still had daylight on our side. Then on our way back, I remember seeing a climbing shoe in the creek and thinking, dang, someone's having a bad day. I picked it up to show my buddy, only when I looked over to him, he's as white as a sheet and looking a little further downstream. I have to climb a little to see what he's looking at, but when I get eyes on it, I suddenly understand why he looks so frightened. Further downstream, there are two hikers lying in the shallow water, rope and harnesses still attached, but very obviously dead from how broken and twisted up their bodies were. The worst thing was, I suddenly realized that I'd seen the exact same couple climbing maybe 2 or 3 hours before. They were having the best time, making their calls, scaling parts of the rock face that me and my buddy could only dream of at the ages we were at. It was surreal, horrifying, and heartbreaking all at once. They must have slipped and fallen while we were having lunch, so while we were all busy filling our stomachs with the sandwiches and donuts that we'd brought, they were tumbling to their deaths just a few 100 meters away. I remember wondering, why didn't you scream? And having that question haunt me for weeks afterwards. I always figured that I'd be so scared that I'd scream the entire mountain down if I ever felt like that, but the pair of them somehow managed to stay totally quiet for the whole fall. Maybe they hit their heads early on the way down and were unconscious or something, but I don't know. Another part of me thinks that it was just acceptance or something, or pride that made them shove their fear down so they could die with dignity. Then right as I'm totally absorbed by the horror of what I was looking at, I see this young family heading up the trail behind us. I rushed up onto the path and try to compose myself as I approach, greeting them warmly before asking if I can talk to them for a moment. They seem a little confused, and the kids are asking, "Who's that, Mommy?" But I managed to give the dad a look which told them something was horribly wrong without freaking the kids out too much. I then invite the guy to walk up the trail with me while he has the good sense to keep his wife and kids back in safety, ignorance. Then as soon as he sees the bodies, he tells me he'll make a stop at the ranger's cabin on the way down to let them know what's happened, while me and my buddy stayed with the bodies to guide the rangers and when they showed up. The dad I ran into must have jogged down the mountain as quickly as he could because I heard the sound of an ATV getting louder and louder within a matter of minutes. The ranger had a radio and whatnot, way more powerful than any of our phones, which were basically no good at the altitude we were at. And with that, he was able to call on the relevant authorities before telling us that we were free to leave and thanking us for our time. I sometimes wonder if there was ever a chance of saving them, that maybe if we had been in a certain spot at a certain time, we might have been able to at least stop some bleeding or call in help in time to actually save their lives. Or maybe, with all our experience, we'd have been able to spot them the moment they started pushing themselves a little too far, telling them to slow it down or take a different route or something. But as my buddy said, you can't think in those terms. If you do, it'll drive you crazy. And I already felt on the verge of a nervous breakdown after seeing the condition their poor bodies were in. After that, we took another long break from hiking, and when we finally got back to it last year, after a lot of the restrictions were relaxed, we certainly didn't go back to Heart Mountain. Way too many bad memories there to go back anytime soon.